Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den, as we are in Halloween week. In the co-captain's chair today, once again, is Mr. Chris Alo. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me, Pete.
Thanks for coming on. We're talking some serious stuff here now. This is Italian horror, and not just any Italian horror. We've each chosen three classics from three of the greats: Dario Argento, Lucio Fulci, and Mario Bava. I don't think it gets much better than that when it comes to Italian horror, right?
When it comes to Italian horror, that's it. That's the Mount Rushmore right there. Like
Exactly.
I couldn't even think who would number 4 be. Maybe Umberto Lenzi, but I'd put him down, under those other three for sure.
Right. There is no 4, 5, or 6. He's, it's,
yeah. It's the big three of Italian horror, and this is it. I mean, they're the ones.
Yeah. So if you were to describe not just the films of these guys, but if you were to describe like Italian horror to someone who's never seen any Italian horror films, what, like one sentence, how would you describe that?
Style over substance. I couldn't describe it better than that. I mean, you have the most amazing visuals and unbelievable camera angles and cinematography, and not tons in every movie, but usually lots of gore and splatter effects, and just everything looks amazing. But sometimes there's lots of lapses of logic, and sometimes you'll get to a movie and like when I would watch it with my wife, she'd be like, I don't get it. And I'm like, you just got to go with it. It's Italian horror. Just go with it. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah,
I will. Italian horror is my favorite subgenre. I'll take it over anything else. That's for sure. If it looks good and it sounds good, I'm okay.
There you go.
I don't. I could have a couple plot holes.
Yeah, and sometimes more than a couple plot holes, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and sometimes too the translation between the English and the Italian language like doesn't quite make it over, right? Maybe it made sense to them, but by the time it got here on these shores, we're like, what? What did they just say? Is that really what just happened there? I don't know. But fun movies nonetheless.
Absolutely. Amazing stuff.
So we've, like I said, we've each picked out three of, they don't necessarily have to be our favorites from these directors, but three favorites, okay, that we do enjoy quite a bit. Chris, which director should we do first here?
Maybe go chronologically, maybe. So start with Mario Bava.
There you go. And your first pick.
Yep. My first pick would be Mario Bava's first film. He co-directed a movie called E Vampiri, which is actually on this set that I have, which I never watched. But his first major film was 1960s Black Sunday, which was also released under the title The Mask of Satan. And this particular version, this is the British version from Arrow. This is a good one because it's a triple disc, and it has both versions. I believe in the States they were released separately on Blu-ray. But the version you want is Mask of Satan because it's the longer version. And long story short, Barbara Steele, who is completely captivating. She's just got such an incredible look. This was her first breakout hit. And she stars as a witch who in the beginning of the movie gets put to death. And she has the mask of Satan, which is this huge iron mask with spikes on the inside, hammered into her face. And she's tied up, and they're going to burn her at the stake. And rain comes, puts the fire out, but she's dead anyway. But she says, of course, she says, she'll be back, to wreak her vengeance. And of course, she does come back. The plot of the movie is she's going to do a role. She comes back as the nasty witch looking for revenge, but she's also plays her her younger, more innocent ancestor. And of course, the Scooby-Doo plot is the witch and her lover, who was also killed in the beginning of the movie, return and want to put her soul into the soul of the witch into the younger, unmarked, beautiful ancestor. And chaos ensues, but a whole bunch of other stuff happens. But this is certainly style over substance. There's a little bit in the movie I was like, what? But I'm scratching my head. But this movie reeks reeks of atmosphere. I mean, it looks, for black and white, the lighting, the cinematography, it just looks unbelievable. I mean, this is the very definition of gothic horror. I mean, it's just like you could almost smell the cobwebs and the fog. I mean, not often, maybe other than Suspiria, there's not many movies where I can get completely sucked in just by the look. And this movie, 100% just sucks you in. And for its time, 1960, it's quite violent. I mean, when Barbara Steele gets that mask, smashed onto her face, blood comes out and there's eye gouging. And, again, for 1960, we're talking 8 years before George Romero did Night of the Living Dead, which was groundbreaking. Mario Bava was doing this stuff. So it's an older film, but man, it's still so influential and so worth checking out. It's my personal favorite Bava film.
I love it too. It's really good. You mentioned something about style, and I think of these three directors we're talking about today. One who the style really kind of just shows itself in almost every film he ever did was Bava's films.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely the godfather of Italian horror cinema for sure.
Yeah, I think Fulci and Argento had the more shocking films for the most part.
Which makes sense. They were a little later.
Yeah, a little later. Although the one I'm going to talk about is pretty shocking, really violent. I'm not going to say pretty violent, really violent. Probably the most violent film he ever released, which is 1971's Twitch of the Death Nerve, otherwise known as A Bay of Blood.
Bay of Blood, yeah.
So this film, when you watch it, I remember the first time I saw this, I had seen so many other late 70s and 80s slasher films and, all that sort of thing. And I watched this and I'm like, holy crap, when did this come out? And I'm like, 71.
Yeah.
Tell me that these guys who made Friday the 13th and Halloween and Sleepaway Camp and all this stuff, tell me they didn't watch this movie, right?
Yeah. Because
this is probably the first big body count slasher film ever. So, and you could also, they call this, a lot of the Italian slasher films are also called giallos. Giallos or giallo? I think it's giallo,
giallo, yeah.
Yeah. And that's basically, that means mystery thriller. But here it's really violent mystery thriller in a big way. So, the basic premise of this story is, it starts off, you got this older elderly couple who own this big rich estate, right? And in the beginning of the film, you see the husband knock off the wife and then try to make it look like a suicide. So he's got a suicide letter there all ready to go. So I'm going to kill my wife and I'm going to make it look like she killed herself. But then lo and behold, after he does that, someone offs him, takes his body and goes, and at the edge of the estate, there's this bay, right? And this big body of water. So they take the body, or he takes whoever kills him, takes the body, throws it in the water, right? Sinks it down below. And then, so now we're like, all right, so people come and discover the old lady. She's dead. There's a suicide note. They're like, okay, whatever. So now you've got this estate, which obviously, what do you do with it, right? So they have a daughter, and the daughter also has a stepbrother. There's also a son from one of the two, I don't remember which, that she never really knew about. Then you've got this couple who were the real estate agents of the family, and all of these people want a piece of the estate. So now it's all right, so now there's this battle of who's going to get all the money in the whole estate. And then, so it goes out into the news, the local news, that the old lady kills herself. The estate is now empty. They're trying to figure out who it's going to. All these teenagers decide, hey, we got nothing to do this weekend. Let's go sneak onto the estate and have ourselves a party over the weekend, right? So they come on to they come hanging out. They're going swimming. So of course you got the the mandatory nude scenes. Everybody's going naked, swimming in the water. Naked women, hopping around in the lake and all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, one by one, they all start getting killed. So it's literally like the blueprint for a lot of those movies we talked about before.
Totally, and you're 100% right, Pete. I mean, some of the kills were taken right from this for Friday 1 and 2. I mean, if I remember right, the best kill in Friday 2 was the guy on top of the girl or vice versa in the camp, and the killer Jason comes in with the spear and spears through the two of them. That's right out of Twitch of the Death Nerve, which came out 10 years earlier.
Yeah, exactly. I
mean,
but pretty amazing. Watch it, like, wait a second, right? And there's some spectacular kill scenes in this film. Just so many of them. I mean, and the grisly scene with the one body with the octopus sucking on the face. I mean, it's just so gnarly, right? So gnarly. The hatchets to faces, and I mean, just all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah, the hatchet to the face here is just like, or not hatchet. It's actually like a machete, right on the guy's face. It's like he's 1 second he's talking, the next way right in the middle, and it's so well done. And so the whole plot is like, and all these people are trying to kill each other. You don't really know who it is that's doing the mass killings, right? So it's kind of like a whodunit as well, right up to the end. Really well done. And like I said, if you just love these films with just random violence, huge body counts, great special effects, lots of gore, you gotta see this. You got to see this. It's not like it's got the greatest plot ever in the history of films, but it's just interesting enough to kind of get you through this whole thing, and it's very enjoyable. Actually, it's kind of tense, and it'll keep you guessing as to who is the one who's doing most of the killing in here. But more importantly, you just kind of like any Friday the 13th movie, you're just waiting to see who's getting killed next and how. Right. That's what it's all about. Yeah, so that's my first choice here. That's my Mario Bava pick for today.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a classic pick. My next pick, actually, before I even say the title of the movie, I can definitively say this is the scariest thing, the scariest I've ever been, ever, was when I saw this the TV movie in 1977. I was at my grandmother's house in Peekskill. And we were watching Channel 5. I think it was the news. And I don't even think it was particularly late at night, but a commercial came on, and I remember watching the TV, and it was a pretty lady from the back. I thought she was pretty from the back, combing her hair, and all of a sudden she turns around, and it was a wig on a skull. And it freaked me the fuck out. I mean, I was 6 years old, and even at 6, I loved horror movies. I loved the Christopher Lee Hammer films. My name is Christopher Lee, so that was the connection. But man, I was petrified. Couldn't even run. And then I forgot all about it. Years later, in the late 80s, I saw Suspiria and loved it. And then in the early 90s, I got the Laserdisc. The widescreen Laserdisc of Suspiria, which had that trailer spot, and when I saw it, it was like all the memories came back. It was like I was in that shot from Jaws with Roy Scheider where they pull in and they're pulling out. I was like, oh my god, this is that trailer. But it's amazing. The movie, of course, I'm talking about is Suspiria. This is the new 4K edition, which came out, I think, last year, which is absolutely fucking stunning. It looks and sounds amazing, with a 4K TV and a 4K player. The look and the sound of this disc is amazing. But long story short, Jessica Harper from Phantom of the Paradise stars as an American who flies to Germany to go to ballet school. And from the minute she gets out of the taxi, there's weird shit going on. and there's some students that leave, and they're leaving the school as she's coming in, and she passes by and she hears some stuff, and then the student tragically gets murdered along with a friend of hers, and she plays the character she plays Susie Banyan. She's in this school learning how to do ballet, and it's almost like a haunted house movie. There's weird stuff going on, but you don't quite know. I don't want to give too much away, but it's completely atmospheric.
Yeah.
The color palette of this movie looks amazing. I believe, or it was, I think it was the Technicolor process, and there was some. I'm no expert when it comes to technical stuff, but it was one of the last processes of Technicolor or something like that. It just looks fucking amazing. Goblin did the score. It sounds incredible. When I watch this movie, I have to turn it up to 11, like for Spinal Tap, because it needs to be. I need to have the windows rattle. There's just the sounds are just amazing, and it's by far my favorite Argento flick. Just like with Bava, there's some lapses of reason, and you're like, yeah, but it's amazing. And again, by far my favorite Dario Argento film. I could watch this, and I know I've seen it off film, projected in theaters at least 4 or 5 times. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've seen it at the house. But yeah, by far, this it has never looked better than it does on this new 4K edition from Synapse Films. So definitely great. It looks and sounds so good that I watched the movie, and I watched all the extras, and I was like, shit, if it wasn't so late, I'd rewatch the movie right now from start to finish. That's how great this flick is.
Well, now I'm gonna have to watch it this weekend because I haven't seen it yet this year. But yeah, I guess it sounds like I got to upgrade my Anchor Bay DVD. It sounds like, right?
Oh God, throw that thing away. I mean, there's like night and day. That's like me telling you, oh yeah, Pete, I'm going to listen to this Yes album. I got it on 8-track. You'd be like, what? Yeah, definitely. If you have a 4K TV and a 4K player, yeah, gotta get the 4K disc. It's
all right,
unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a visually amazing film. Anyway, it's just so creepy and atmospheric, and then whenever she's on screen, and she's so lovely, right? So it's just, and it's not. And this film, Suspiria is really different from a lot of Argento's other films because it's not like he's got a lot more violent films than Suspiria.
Oh, sure.
Although it's got plenty of that in here, but it's just different, and it's definitely a classic of the genre, I think.
Oh yeah, and so unlike some of his other films, I mean, some of his other films, I mean, like Inferno is awesome and visually is amazing, but there's like no plot.
Yeah.
And I mean, like this, it does for Argento. Yeah, it's got a very simple plot. Girls, in a ballet school in Germany, and weird shit happens, and she's our hero, and like you said, she's the nice girl. You want her to make it out. She's a very likable character, and you're like, holy shit, all this weird bad shit happens to this girl. I hope she can make it out alive.
Yeah. That's a good choice. That's probably my favorite Argento film.
Yeah.
I mean, and I wouldn't.
He's got a lot of great ones.
Yeah, he does have a lot of really good ones, including this next one, which again, we're talking about the Giallo films, and I love this one. And we're talking about Deep Red. Okay, here's a 2 for here with Tenebrae, also another really good film. Deep Red, I almost went with Tenebrae, but I decided to go with Deep Red for this. So also known as Profondo Rosso, okay, which is the Italian title of that, released in 1975. I think they also released it at some point as the Hatchet Murders, right? I think
I was going to say Deep Red Hatchet Murders, and if I'm not mistaken, it was released in Japan as Suspiria 2, even though it was made before, just to cash in, if I remember right.
Nothing to do with Suspiria, other than the fact that Goblin's in the film score for this as well. Right? I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, there's nothing else, and a great film score from Goblin on this too. I mean, Goblin did some terrific stuff with these Italian horror films. So here you got. So this is a total kind of slasher mystery thriller, kind of like a whodunit thing. Another big body count, right? So you got Marcus Daly is the main character. He's like a piano player in this film. He's played by David Hemmings. I don't know. My copy's weird because it kind of fluctuates between Italian language and English back and forth, and then the subtitles come on, and they're off. I don't know what the deal is with that. It's kind of confusing, the version that I have here. But anyway, it kind of starts off. You got the main character. He's out talking with his buddy who's really drunk out in the streets outside an apartment building. He looks up and he sees a woman getting attacked. Through the balcony window, and he's like, oh shit, something's going on up there, right? So he leaves his drunk friend down below and he goes running up up in the building to find out what's going on. Somehow he knows exactly where that apartment is, goes right there, walks in, the door is open, there she is. She's like butchered in the apartment. The cops wind up coming, they start asking him a lot of questions. How did you know what was going on here? Well, I was down in the street, so on and so forth. Anyway, he's a real kind of he's got these detective instincts, right? So he really wants to find out, well, what's going on here. And then someone else turns up dead. He winds up befriending this female reporter who's Daria Nicolodi, who is actually, at the time when this film was made, was living and in a relationship with Dario Argento. In fact, they had a child, a daughter, who was Asia Argento, who I'm sure also an actress. Most people probably know who she is. Anyway, but all the murders are kind of tied to this event that happened years before, because they played this weird la 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 la, this little child song throughout the whole film. Every now and then, before the murders happen, you hear this kind of song. You're like, what the hell's going on here, right?
I think that track's called "School at Night," if I remember right.
Right, yeah. And it just adds to the whole creep factor here. I mean, so the whole lot of spectacular death scenes, again, using all sorts of different weapons and things like that. So the gore and the shock value is pretty high, and you really kind of keep guessing who is the killer throughout until the end of the movie. And I'm not going to give it away, but and then by the end of the movie, when you kind of find out, you're like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And then they throw another wrinkle into the whole thing. You're like, wow, that really makes sense, right? So pretty cool, good acting. Again, plot holes all over the place, as you would expect. But if you just like good Italian, slasher film, kind of like a whodunit murder mystery type of thing, a lot of really cool kills, can't go wrong with Deep Red.
And that weird puppet thing steals the show.
Oh, yeah. What?
I don't even know what it is, but every time I see it, it freaks me out.
You got to love Argento, right? It's we're just going to throw this in here to just if
totally, absolutely
weirded out by this film as it is, this will definitely do it, right? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so that leaves us with Lucio Fulci, right?
Yeah. Yep. The maestro himself. My pick is the cover says the most controversial horror film ever made. I guess I would say it's probably either this film or Cannibal Holocaust, but it is New York Ripper, and this is brand new. This came out maybe a month or two ago. This is the new 4K disc from Blue Underground, and again, absolutely stunning. The
Blue Underground does such a great job on there.
I mean, if you have the DVD, throw it away and get this one, because this is the 4K, and the Blu-ray disc looks unbelievable. For those who don't know the plot, long story short, it's basically a giallo or a slasher, depending your point of view. Someone is going in New York City and horribly butchering pretty women, and everybody in this film is completely unlikable. From the cops to the medical examiner, just everybody. And there's just tons of violence, tons of gore, tons of sex, prostitutes, live sex shows, S&M. I mean, this thing has it all. I mean, women getting stabbed in the private parts, people's eyes being cut in half. I mean, it's just so fucking violent, so, misogynistic and just brutal. And then, you chug along. There's tons of red herrings. Who's the killer? Who's not the killer? They throw shade on everybody. Then you get to the end, and it's such a fucking downer of an ending. You're like, oh my God, this is so depressing. But it's a great flick. I mean, if you're looking for a horror, a giallo or a slasher, and you can take it, because man, even me, and I've seen this movie a ton of times. When they did the eyeball slicing scene, I was like, oh fuck, that is, especially now that it's in 4K and you can see everything. I mean, even after 40 years, the effects really hold up. So yeah, that's my pick from Fulci, New York Ripper. And to me, as a bit of a horror historian, this movie always makes me scratch my head, because I'm like, all right, in the 80s, so many lesser like Italian horror films were released theatrically in America, like Burial Ground and Pieces. And this thing is called New York Ripper. This thing was made to play on 42nd Street in Manhattan, but it was not released theatrically in the States. It was not released theatrically in England. It was released theatrically in Italy and Germany and a few other countries, but there's lots of theories. One of which is that it was so violent and so misogynistic that nobody, thought that this would be, a hit. I mean, I know it in the States. It got released. The movie came out in '82 in Italy. It didn't get released on VHS until 1987.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see it until I got a VHS copy in 90 or 91. So it's not nearly as well known as Zombie or Gates of Hell, which were his two big hits. But it's still a great flick, and especially if you can handle it. I mean, this is horror.
It's extreme. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's extreme.
It's funny because like Maniac barely got released here, right? That was looked at as wow. I mean, New York Ripper is even way more over the top than that.
Totally, yeah. But Maniac did get a theatrical release in the States.
It did, yeah.
And did make some money over here. But yeah, this thing just, this is like the band that puts the album out, and I mean, the label goes out of business. There's no tour, and it's just like, boop, see ya.
I haven't seen that in a long time. I have it. It's sitting on my shelf.
Yeah.
I need to watch that.
It still packs a punch.
Yeah. I remember the first time I ever saw it, I was like, woo, boy.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw it after I saw this one.
I can't believe I left out the most, probably the most unique thing, that the killer quacks like a duck.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
The Riddler, he calls up and leaves his clues, but he does it impersonating Donald Duck voice, which is really off-putting. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but it is a plot point to the movie, but it's so jarring, and it so takes you out of the movie. And I think they should have done something. Fulci should have gone a different way, because it just so, you're like, what the fuck is this? This guy's talking like a duck, but he's going around chopping up all these women. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But again, it's Italian, so you just got to go with it.
That's it. I completely forgot about the whole duck thing.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, and it's funny because my pick after I saw this movie, and I saw this in I guess it was like the mid '80s, and at the time it was the most extreme thing I had ever seen. And I was like, I don't know if I can handle Fulci after that. And then I watched New York Ripper like 2 years later, and I was like, holy smokes. But anyway, my choice is City of the Living Dead from 1980, otherwise known as The Gates of Hell, which is how it was released here in 1983. And yeah, I remember renting this on VHS one night. It was I guess summer break or something like that from college. I was out in Long Island at the time, and watching this at 1 o'clock in the morning and thinking, what the hell am I looking at here? I mean, just the amount of over the top gore is just, for 1983, unheard of, completely unheard of. So this film stars a guy named Christopher George, who was married to Linda Day George, the actress. I mean, you see him in this film, you're like, oh, that guy. It's like, where have I seen him before? He was in El Dorado, The Devil's Eight, Chisholm, Midway, Pieces. He was in the Rat Patrol show. So he was like all over the place. So basically, the plot here is like, the beginning of the film, there's like a seance going on, right? And during the seance, this woman gets a vision, has this vision of this priest who's like hanging himself, right? And that apparently opens up the gateway to hell, right? And then you've got, All Saints Day is coming in a couple of days. So all of these, the living dead and all these ghouls and zombies are actually going to converge all over the earth on All Saints Day based on this gate that was just opened up. So, it's kind of inspired loosely on the works of H.P. Lovecraft. It's got that kind of Lovecraftian feel. And, basically, we got a psychic and the reporter. They kind of team up together once they find out what's kind of going on here to close the gateway before All Saints Day. So they kind of have an idea of what's going on. But the creepy thing about this film is like you get the image of this priest who pops up periodically during the film, and every time you see him, some bad shit is going to happen, right? And that usually after you see him is followed up by someone dying or someone coming up from the ground, right, and opening their mouth and all these guts and intestines coming out, and it's just like completely over the top. Get people getting drills in the head, the vomiting of guts and all this crazy stuff. I mean, it's just like, it's relentless in this film. And, again, most of the film really doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, but almost like it doesn't
No,
matter,
it's true.
right?
Out of the 6 movies, this could be the big that we talked about tonight. This is probably the biggest head scratcher.
Yeah. It just doesn't really make any sense. Is it a zombie film? I don't know. Is it I don't, what is it? I don't know, but it's disturbing. It's gross. It's got a killer soundtrack though from Fabio Frizzi, which is awesome, right? But yeah, it's just when you talk about like Italian horror films that just try to push the envelope and go over the top, don't make a hell of a lot of sense, but you know what? You remember the ghoulish creations and all the gore and just how unsettling it is. It doesn't get much better than this, or worse, depending on your
point of view.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to add any anecdotes to this film. It's just it's the first one I ever saw from him, and to this day, it's the one that kind of like always like, oh my god, the first Fulci film. Zombie is like such a great film. New York Ripper is demented and even more extreme than that. And I like the giallo stuff that he's done too, which is very cool. Like here he got Don't Torture a Duckling, which is a cool film. There's a lot of other good ones, but man, this one is just like.
Yeah, it's a classic. I know one thing that I found very interesting as a collector, because I do collect original movie posters from the Fulci films. They had tried to release Gates of, it was City of the Living Dead in Europe, Gates of Hell in America, but they tried to release it in America under the title Twilight of the Dead, because Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead were already copyrighted by Romero, but I think they had the copyright on Twilight of the Dead too. And it wasn't until maybe like about 3-4 years ago where I actually found a poster with the City of the Living Dead or Gates of Hell artwork, but with the title Twilight of the Dead. And I was like, wow, it's real. It really did get. They tried, but man, it's a great flick. I always kind of thought that, to me, as a movie, it very much feels like a combination of 2 John Carpenter films, one that came before it and one that came after it, and it kind of reminds me of The Fog and Prince of Darkness. Like the Fog, how you have the fog rolls into the New England town and there's zombies in it, and kind of like that with Gates of Hell. But at the same time, they're trying to stop this evil, which, always reminded me of Prince of Darkness, which, of course, came, a couple of years after.
Right.
So, to somebody that hasn't seen it, if you've seen those movies. But, of course, ultra violent and ultra gory. I'll never forget the first time that I saw it on VHS. I rented the Gorgon video, the big box. And man, when the girl vomits up the intestines, and it's not just a little bit. I mean, it just keeps
It
on
never
coming.
stops, right? It never stops, and it's these gigantic chunks coming out. It's just like, what in the hell?
Just
Oh,
unbelievable. Then John Morgan from Cannibal Ferox or Make Them Die Slowly, who plays the dim-witted guy who gets the drill through the head. I mean, yeah, it's just it's crazy. It's a crazy film, but so much fun. And yeah, if you can stand the gore, and if you're looking for gore, it doesn't get much better than that movie.
yeah. I think in all these films that we just talked about, there's probably more killings and deaths in these movies alone compared to like 100 other films put together, right?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. So violent. And New York Ripper and City of the Living Dead they were unrated. Because they would have gotten an X if they went through the rating system. I mean, as you know, City of the Living Dead or Gates of Hell has right on the poster, similar to Dawn of the Dead, this movie is unrated. There's no explicit sex in this picture, but there's so much, violence, which is interesting that, because nobody would ever do it today. But it's amazing to think that almost 40 years ago, these filmmakers and distributors would release horror movies, and Gates of Hell got a decent release like Zombie and unrated. And, it worked. The thinking back then was that, okay, if we say nobody under 17 admitted at all, then everybody under 17 is going to want to go. And, certain theaters back then were tougher than others. Like I know in my area, we had a theater, the Beach Shopping Center in Peekskill, New York, or Cortland, New York, that you could see anything. Didn't matter. So like in 1984, when Pieces came out, I was 13. That was unrated. So I wasn't supposed to be allowed at all, but that theater didn't care. Yeah. So, you bought a ticket? Sure. But if I tried to do the new Friday the 13th movie at the other local theater, oh no, they wouldn't. No go. They wouldn't sell it to me without a ticket. But it is amazing back then that a good amount of movies got through the rating system and made money.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Like, so when I rented this film, in the video store, because I didn't see it in the theaters, obviously. It wasn't a big box, and I remember, this yes, guy right here was big on the box, and I remember it was not in like the new release section, but it was in the horror section, but it was lumped in with a bunch of other like foreign unrated films. And there was I remember the writing on the box was like the most terrifying and shocking film you've ever seen, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, cool.
Good.
It was even more shocking than I really expected. I was like, holy crap,
Yeah, even by today's standards, with people accustomed to the blood and the guts of The Walking Dead, both New York Ripper and Gates of Hell are still, totally unsettling in just the on-screen carnage.
Yeah. I think that probably for folks who are watching who haven't seen these films, and your experience with horror is probably more the PG-13 type stuff that they kind of throw at us today. Yeah. Quite different.
Yeah,
you were in for a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not for the week. No, yeah, no. These movies. This is the Cannibal Corpse of horror movies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Suspiria is like Gone with the Wind when compared to this type of stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, although there's this is the 4K version is the international cut, and which is even more graphic than the U.S. R-rated cut. And like I always remember, because growing up, I would see the R-rated cut a lot, and I had the Laserdisc in the 90s, which was the R-rated cut. Like the international cut is definitely extra violent. Like even in the beginning, that when the girl gets stabbed, I mean, you see her heart. It goes right in her heart, and her heart's beating and pumping blood, and it's like, wow, this is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. So, Suspiria. Yeah, Suspiria would be the Iron Maiden and New York Ripper and Gates of Hell. That's Cannibal Corpse or Morbid Angel.
Yeah.
If we're comparing it to bands.
Yeah, there you go. That makes a lot of sense. So there you have it, everybody. 6 recommendations, 2 each from each of these fantastic directors: Mario Bava, Dario Argento, and Lucio Fulci. So curious to see what everybody thinks. And if you've seen these films, let's hear what you think about them. Or if you have other favorites from these directors, we want to hear that too. So I want to thank Chris Alo for coming back on and doing another Monsters Den with us. We'll be seeing him once again on the Monsters Den. Also coming up next, he'll be joining us on the ranking the album shows. We got 2 coming up, one for Nightwish and one for Epica. So those will be happening over the next week or so. So stay tuned for that. And this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. So for Chris Alo, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for joining us here on the Monsters Den. And we look forward to seeing everybody out there this Halloween on Saturday, if you dare.